Currently, you have no one in the waiting room, just FYI.
Great. Inez might get her wish, and we might be giving everyone a nice break from Zoom, right? There's probably someone watching on YouTube. There's probably someone, right?
You are live on YouTube.
That's good. Maybe even if somebody stumbles across it by accident, they'll be like, "Oh, this is interesting. I want to hang out with these people for a little bit. It'd be good. Be good." How does it? Something is beeping. I'm not even sure what that is.
Oh, if you hear a car beeping, that's in my background. I'm gonna mute before you guys actually start. It's just Van Nuys sounds.
The ambient noise of Van Nuys. Looks like such a cavernous room behind me. A lot of space. And as I'll share with you while we're live, but we haven't technically gotten started. Jonah and Eliab are so excited about fasting. It is so cute. They're like, "We want to fast." Like, well, you're 9 and you're 5, so let's. But they're so gung ho. They're so excited. So I had to talk to them before I left today to be like, "Okay, got like, remember, if Ema tells you you need you need to eat, you need to eat. You can't just,
So cute.
Yeah, they're
into it.
Yeah, like we were all wearing white last night. It was very sweet. Well, I was home last night. I haven't been home for Kol Nidre, like Erev Yom Kippur, I think since we've had kids.
Wow.
Working.
Wow, that's big. That's
big. It's very sweet. We all had a nice early night. We were all in bed by 9. When you're waking up in the morning and you don't have to eat breakfast or anything, simplifying.
All right, you've got one person in the waiting room.
I see that. Let's what time is it? Are we at 10?
Yes.
We're at 10. All right, Inez, it'll be you, me, and Michal Vakil.
Yay.
That'll be a very interesting conversation. Let's go for it.
Let's do it.
Let her in. We'll get this party started. Hi, Michal.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. You're getting what you've always wanted, which is some one-on-two time with me and Inez. Oh, here's Debbie Berman. You had it for 30 seconds.
So close.
Oh, but look at your pomegranates. Oh,
that or the messy office though.
That's very festive. Although if I'm hungry for pomegranates, I'm in trouble.
I know.
Good morning, Debbie. Debbie's muted. All right, let's get started. Hi. Okay, we're on YouTube as well. Folks might be watching us on YouTube. Hello, people on YouTube. We can't see you if you're there, but hello anyway. I can see you, Michal. You're here. You're on the.
No, I don't know if they can see all of us or just you.
Oh, I don't know. If you can't see Michal also just waved to the people on YouTube. Good morning. Gmar Chatima Tova. Hope everyone is having a meaningful day thus far and not too hungry yet. This is going to be our third High Holiday Lounge this year. Today, I'm joined with Inez Tiger. Hi, Inez.
Hi.
We're going to be leading it together. And we're going to be building off of what we started talking about over Rosh Hashanah. But before we get into sort of the content of the session today, we're sort of asking and encouraging folks to think about what's helping you to navigate this time. Inez, do you want to sort of speak to this question and why you thought it was important to start with today?
Sure. No, I think for everyone, people have been sharing their resources, what's really helping them, because it's such a roller coaster of emotions and responses. I'm so curious about what people are, who or what is helping people navigate. So I'm curious to hear how people are navigating this time.
Do you want to start maybe?
Sure. I think for me, I go in and out. Definitely, the exercise has not been consistent, but the meditation has been. So a daily practice, even if it's 5 minutes, has helped anchor me every day. So that's been really helpful. What about you, Matt?
Well, we've been meditating together, so so that seems like a bit of a cheat if I say that too. Meditation has definitely helped. I'll also say I've only gone a few times, but each time that I've been at the beach, I'd say I've been to the beach maybe 4 or 5 times till all this started. But each time I've been out, and I've always loved being at the beach, but particularly now, just getting out there, getting that fresh ocean air, getting my feet in the sand, getting my feet in the ocean a little bit. I don't go in the water, but bringing a book and just getting out and seeing something so majestic and hitting that reset button. And as you just heard my sermon, so that connects me to wonder, not to recycle concepts from Rosh Hashanah. But yeah, going to the beach when I'm able to get out there has been really helpful. Anybody else want to share something that's helping you to navigate this time? Hi, Elias.
I'll go, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think just really enjoying my family being around, my kids being around and present, because I think before we were having such a hectic schedule with kids and like very high level sports where they were, gone for like until like the early, like 8, 9 o'clock, I wouldn't see them. And suddenly I had this like incredible like opportunity to spend time with them. And I embraced that. And then also just the time to like breathe and be outside. I really love being outside and I work indoors. So just like being able to like suddenly take a walk at lunch and just really like embracing that and then just exercise, really picked it up. So enjoyed it. That's it.
Great. So three resources, right? Time with family, getting outside, and exercise. Great. That's great. Anybody else want to share a resource, something that's helping you get through these weeks and months?
I would just echo what the others have said, and work is helping me too. I've been so busy with work that it kind of takes my mind off my own life, and I'm focusing on other people, and it's good to be busy.
Yeah, having something to do to feel productive and focused is definitely helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Matt, can I add one thing?
Sure.
I have found
you got 2 minutes. You got so many resources you don't even know
not a lot
what to do with them.
of jumping in, but I found like having like goals being set or something like where you had to achieve something within a certain like was really helpful to me. Like I'm in property management. Somebody created like a property management health group page, and every month we've had a goal. Like 1 month was to walk 100 miles. Another one was We had like a health bingo, you had to fill in all the boxes, but like it kind of gave you purpose every day. Like this was like something fun and distracting and healthy at the same time. And I don't know, I really enjoyed like, and we're doing the 6 week challenge, but kind of with the fires and whatever. But like having some type of goal that's just more fun and kind of can be distracting has been really good too.
So Michal, you don't even know, but you've just given us a fantastic segue into our topic for the day. So thank you for sharing that. I encourage folks to keep thinking about the resources that are helping them to navigate this time. And I'm gonna take that opportunity for a segue and run with it. So Lucas, let's scooch ahead in the slides, please. Yes, hello, we are building our spiritual strengths with me, Reverend Matt Shapiro, that's me, and Inez Tiger, that's Inez, hi Inez. Inez, for those who don't know, is the Director of Student Wellness at Pressman Academy. And she and I have a lot of fun talking about this stuff, so I'm really glad that we finally have some FaceTime together to offer this program. For the sake of some background, Lucas, if we could skip ahead to the next one. So what we've been exploring over the course of Rosh Hashanah, and now what we're picking up today as well, is using this book as a jumping off point, right there. The Spiritual Child by Dr. Lisa Miller. Dr. Miller is a research psychologist, and what she has done in this work is she talks about what spirituality is and how spirituality is sort of something innate that we all have, and how connecting with that is something that helps us live healthier lives, live more fulfilling lives, etc. She talks about the book specifically through the lens of children, and in turn for parents, and how children can help develop that in parents, and how for parents themselves it can help them to thrive as well. And what we've been doing is we've been extrapolating that out into thinking not just within the construct of parenting, but more broadly for each of us, parent, child, person in the world, that this is something that's helpful to us. So since I think not everybody has been with us before, you see up there the slide that spirituality is an inner sense of relationship to a higher power that is loving and guiding. The word we give to this higher power might be God, nature, spirit, the universe, the creator, other words that represent a divine presence. But the important point is that spirituality encompasses our relationship and dialogue with this higher presence. So sort of getting that down to its essentials, 2 pieces to that. The first is that recognizing that there is something bigger than us. We can call that any number of things, but that there's something bigger than us, capital S something, and that spirituality consists of relationship and dialogue with that something. And whatever that something is, and whatever that relationship looks like, there's a very, very, very broad way of understanding what both of those pieces might be, but that's what that is. And again, I'll say what's interesting, I mean, I think a lot of things are interesting about this, but what's of particular interest, I'll say, is that Dr. Miller, she's not just a rabbi who's telling you, of course, spirituality is good, right? She's not a therapist, she's not, right? She's a research psychologist, so she's found this in her work, doing research and sort of building this construct. Inez, anything you wanna sort of layer into that?
No, I think for children, especially when you say spirituality, it's hard for them to grasp that. And I find a lot of the teenagers talk about, you mean that feeling I get when I'm listening to music, that feeling when I get when I go for a hike, when I'm playing a really awesome game with a friend. Yes, it's all of that. So I think the way you just defined it with a big S it's a really nice concept to think about, because it's that which brings me to that incredible space of feeling connected and more than just myself.
Right. Yeah, nice. I'm connected to something bigger than me. Yeah. So Lucas, let's skip ahead. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see here are some quotes by Dr. Miller talking about sort of why spirituality is important, how it is something that is biologically based, how it helps us with resilience, meaning, purpose, optimism, I went through the slide a little bit on the first day, and I think some of you were with us then. Basically, in brief, this slide is saying, yes, per the research psychologist, this isn't just something that sounds nice, right? That this is actually biologically based, and it's something that research has proven helps in a whole variety of ways in terms of how you go about living your life. And what Dr. Miller does at the very end of the book, and it's Yom Kippur, it's the climax of the high holidays, so we're wrapping up with a bang. We're going to go with the very last bit of the very last chapter. I still encourage you to check out the book. But in the last chapter of the book, what she does is she lays out 7 spiritual strengths that you can work on building, right? Just like a muscle, it's something that you're born with, but you need to exercise it in order to make it stronger. 7 different spiritual strengths. Quite a tongue twister. 7 spiritual strengths, there we go, that you build, that you can build, that you can have access to, that if you're working on those things can help cultivate this sense of spirituality that she's talking about. So Michal, this was all a long way of getting to the segue for what you were talking about. So Lucas, let's go to the next slide, please. Striving. This is the sort of last one that Dr. Miller talks about. She talks about how the inspired life honors our deep inner compass, knowing the true standard is so much higher than just what's allowed. The true standard is so much higher than just what's allowed. So let's pause here for a moment, and as I'll hold for you for a second, and I'm curious to hear from others as well what they're thinking about what we've shared thus far.
You want me?
Yeah, if you have any.
Yeah. I think when we were talking, I loved when you said on a continuum of striving, anywhere from self-complacency to perfectionism. And when you unpack that for me, I like the idea that striving implies lots of oopses. I can always make an oops and I always come back, but I'm so aware of not falling into that complacent, because it is an imperative to strive to more than just what's allowed. So I really appreciated you giving me that continuum to think about the notion of striving. It's more than just, it's better than what I should be doing. Yeah.
Curious to hear if others have thoughts, reflections, questions on what we've offered thus far.
Well, I'm sure interested in the just what's allowed part. And to, that may be a good place to start, and that, who is giving permission for what, and is this something that we learn? Is this something that we tell ourselves to do or not to do? That's, are there barriers to spirituality that we set or that we encounter? Probably do. I'm sure we do. I'm sure I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that phrase, I think for me, is what I repeated it, so obviously it's something that I particularly love about this concept. And I think she's talking about spirituality, but she's talking about how working on this practice is something that helps to facilitate spirituality. So even you don't have to be striving towards spirituality for this to be something that's enhancing spirituality, if that makes sense, right? If you're incorporating a sense of striving into your life, big picture, that's something that can help you cultivate a greater sense of meaning, purpose, connection, etc. And so when she talks about true standard being so much higher than what's allowed, it means you're not doing the bare minimum, right? It means that when you think about your life, whether at work or in relationships or whatever it is, I can just get by, right? I can do sort of just enough to get by and be okay, right? But I think what she's talking about is saying, if you really dig deep and look within yourself, there's a real way in which you could be living your life that's more than that, and connecting to that and being honest about that and working towards that. That's striving, right? You're you're already hearing in what I'm saying some of the overlap with Yom Kippur, right? And why we're particularly offering this today. But this sense of, okay, being honest with myself about what am I really working towards, and how can I try to get there. Part of that, yeah, I think, is the explicitly spiritual piece, and saying, okay, I can get by with sort of a minimal spiritual connection, and how am I working on building that? But I think it's even bigger picture than that, if that makes sense.
Rabbi, are you talking about kind of more what like society expects of you, or what you putting your own barriers, I guess, around you?
Yeah,
Cultural barriers.
I'm trying to find. So the sentence right after that in the book, right? She says, so much higher than just what's allowed and living that truth. It's not just making do with the customary rules of the school or the workplace. It's imagining how life could really be instead. Right? It's not just going for the passing grade or the basic level on your performance review at work, right? And I pull that out even from, just sort of those sort of workday concerns, right? In terms of when you think about your relationships or things that are important to you, right? I could get by with just being an adequate, insert whatever role I have in my life here, and I'm pushing myself to be more than that, right? No, there's no one looking over my shoulder grading me as I'm living my life. I have to set for myself sort of what those goals and aspirations are, and how I'm working towards that, if that makes sense.
Can I chime in a little bit? I tend to think of things in very concrete and practical terms. And when I read that, one of the things that comes to mind is something that I'm sure many of us have thought over the last God knows how many years. Somebody says, yeah, it's legal. Well, yeah, it is legal. Does that make it moral? Does that make it right? Does it make it ethical? I'm taking every tax break I possibly can. That gets my taxes down to zero. Is that okay? That doesn't strike me as terribly spiritual, but the practical part of my brain makes it that concrete. So obviously other parts of our life, yeah, is this the minimum I can do to be good to my children, to my spouse, to my clients, to my friends? No, I need to do better than that.
Bob, as you're talking, it's making me think about the dance in Judaism between keva and kavanah, right? That which is fixed, right? The letter of the law, and the kavanah, the intention underneath it, right? Are you just checking that box, or are you really working on connecting with the spirit of the law, right? Is sort of the 21st, right, American term we might use. And there's a great construct in rabbinic Judaism that talks about a naval birshut haTorah. Have folks heard of that before? A naval birshut haTorah literally translates to a scoundrel with the permission of the law. Right? Someone who is checking all the boxes. They're a shul 3 times a day. Well, no, but when they can be, right? They're doing all their davening. They're keeping very strict kashrut, but they're just kind of like they're not really connecting with what it's actually about. And I think when we think about striving and pushing ourselves to do more, I think that's part of what this is talking about too. And I bet you love that concept, huh? I saw a big smile. Yeah.
Yeah, well, she, as Bobby's saying, it's implying some moral integrity here. And so where does that fit in with doing more than just what's expected?
Right. So here, so I went stories this time. I usually go fairly heady text, but I went narrative for this one. So Lucas, let's actually, you know what? Let's get out of the slides for a second. Let's let everybody see each other's faces. Oh, hi everybody. See you. Hello. So I'll share with you guys the story that evoked this for me. Oh, the Eliases are back. Hello, Eliases. So there was a famous rabbi. There's always a famous rabbi, and this rabbi happened to have among his followers a lot of chazanim. And every year it was customary that the Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah, the chazanim would make sure to go to this rabbi after Shabbat had gone out to get his blessing before they could really finish preparing themselves for Rosh Hashanah. And as soon as Shabbat went out, one of the chazanim rushed to the rabbi. They said, okay, Rabbi, I need your blessing before I go. And the rabbi looked at him and said, what's the hurry? And the chazan said, well, you know, I have my machzor at home. I have all my notes that I've accumulated over time to help me, know what prayers to say and how to say them. I have all these notes, so I need to go home and review my notes to make sure that I'm ready for Rosh Hashanah. And the rabbi looked at the chazan. He said, the notes haven't changed from last year. The notes, the prayers, those are the same as they were last year and the year before and the year before that. But the life that you've lived this past year, you are different than you were the year before and the year before that. Better you should take the time to sit and reflect on yourself before the holiday begins. And with that, the chazan was no longer in a rush and stayed with the rabbi for the rest of the year. So this is one of those stories that when you find it, it's like, yes, I've been looking for this story for a very long time. And I'm so glad it has manifested itself for me. I love this story. Apparently, it was from a collection that Heschel shared, specifically about Chazanut and about the important role that Chazanim can hold for us in cultivating this time, which is, of course, right, really blending that keva and that kavanah, the liturgy along with the spirit, which is so important for these holidays. And I just love this idea of how important it is for us to not just reflect on the words, but also upon ourselves. And I think that that's really what this season is about. And sort of, I'll use that opportunity to like finish tying that bow on striving, right? And how this ties in with this season, that when we think about this past year, it's not just, was I good enough, right? Did I get by? It's about really being honest with ourselves and saying, okay, what could I have done better? And also, where did I succeed, right? Both of those things. And saying, okay, it's important for me to reflect on that. That's what this season is really about. And that's what makes striving possible, right? I can't be engaged in striving unless I know where I'm starting from. So I love this story. I'd love to hear what others thought about it. I find it to be lovely.
Do you think you look back positive or negative? Like, how are you supposed to reflect back?
Yes. From my perspective, honestly, right? That honesty means not minimizing either sort of side of the balance sheet, right? To be honest with myself about really where I could have done better and really where I succeeded. I think both of those components are really important. When I worked at Beit Tshuva, every week we and the residents would fill out this tshuva sheet in which we wrote about where we missed the mark and where we hit the mark, right? And everybody would do that every week. And for the vast majority of people, it would be so much easier to write about the mistakes than the successes, right? That it was much easier to say, I messed up that, I should have done that better. Oh yeah, I can't believe I did that. And it was much harder for myself and the majority of people who were engaged in the work to say, I did that pretty well. I was successful at that. That was something that it was important for me to succeed at, and I actually did some good work there, right? So I don't know what Michal, I don't know what your predisposition is, but I'd say whichever one might be more challenging for you to like lean into that one, right? Because I need to know where I'm succeeding if I'm striving, right? If I've already done the work to get there, I don't need to, do steps 1, 2, 3, then it's time to move to step 4. That's what I don't know if that's what you were asking, but that's what came to mind.
I
Okay.
like the idea of succeeding and striving, but I think one of the issues is also not giving up hope in the process. And I think that the challenges of this past year with COVID have set limits on all of us in what we can and can't do. So if we can't visit somebody, making a phone call might be good. Doing a social distance visit, offering to drop off groceries to somebody, making food for somebody, calling people you haven't talked to for a long time. For example, I have a cousin who I haven't talked to since my mother died. His mom was my mom's twin sister, and it's been a year and a half. And he is a retired, but not so retired right now, builder in Santa Rosa. And I remember when the fires in that neighborhood before, I called him, I said, "Are you okay?" And he said they've had 31, that was 2 days ago, so really 33 days of gray skies. And, he's rebuilding. He rebuilt one of his son's houses. He's rebuilt other people's houses. But he still has a fun, jovial personality. It hasn't been lost on all this and hasn't given on hope, up on hope. And a sister who I have in Oregon, and her family, husband, family, etc. Her youngest son who just got married in June. We missed the wedding because of COVID, but we saw the pictures, we talked, etc. He is a manager firefighter, and he sets up camps for all these firemen who are fighting the fires in Oregon. And he's working 16-hour days. So those stories beyond the ones that I hear at work, I don't give up hope, but I also realize, I can't do it all. I can do what I can. And the hardest thing is the limits. We keep talking about wanting to hug and kiss each other, how much we miss each other. I think it's genuine. We're social animals, okay? Especially you've got kids, thank God, you live with them. My kids and grandkids are all in Israel, and it's like, Skype is hard, but it is what it is. And Bob's daughter's in Florida. Nobody's here. So, but I think we do what we can, and we keep striving. We don't give up.
Yeah.
And it's hard, but I think the hope issue is really important, that we miss the mark, we can keep going back, whatever it is, whether we said something wrong, whether we express something maybe we shouldn't have said because somebody's politics is different than yours, and I apologize because I didn't mean to upset them.
Yeah. Diane, you just landed on something really, really lovely, I think, which is that tshuva is an inherently hopeful statement, right? The sense that it's possible for me to do better, right? And that it's, depending on how you view that, and this gets into the perfectionism that Tina was talking about a little bit, and how that's the other side of the coin, right? It shouldn't be perfectionist. But the sense that I can aspire and I can do better than I've done before, that's amazing, right? That's a really important piece that can give hope in this time. Also, Bob, you should be giving Diane more hugs. So Bob, give Diane some more hugs, please.
Just not on screen very much.
Not on screen.
Well, whatever you guys need to do, that's all good. But yeah, and Diane, I also heard you talking about sort of recalibrating expectations in this time, and I think that's important too.
Yeah. Jokingly, partly, I'll do namaste elbows. I just got video at work. That's a whole other animal. I'm not going to, but I can joke with people on the phone. And what I try and draw on them is that also the trajectory of looking forward. And they'll tell me what they need to tell me so I can try and help them at work. But I think part of that is if we have to keep our sense of positivity that the next year is going to be better. And I keep hearing that from the rabbis, from Rosh Hashanah, from Rock, but I think that we have to look back, we can't forget, but we need to move forward. And I will mention this because to me, one of the reasons Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Zichron Livracha, is so important, I think, to a lot of people, not just to women, but because she was very positive. the things that she did and accomplished for a short, little, slight judge, to me, were amazing. The fact that she shared opera with someone who was politically very different, but that they'd gone to school together. And that, part of her story is taking care of her husband when he was trying to finish law school, when he was overcoming cancer. I mean, just those little tidbits to me, and then at one point, I think, and it's been in the last couple of years, she said something which is not appropriate for a judge to do politically. And then she apologized. Okay. And I won't say what, but most people, if they've read it, they know. But to me, she was a model really of, I want to go beyond an Aisha Kyle, but just somebody who really is an example of hope. So,
So I'm gonna pick that up, and I'm gonna use that as a cue to move into the next slide we have.
oh, good. I'm happy.
Yeah, you guys are just giving me great segues today, which is wonderful. Lucas, can we pull up, if you get slide 8? Oh, nope. Hey. Next. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. So Dr. Miller, probably not surprising to many folks on this call, is Jewish. And she weaves in sort of some pieces about her own sort of journey through that, and some challenges and some sort of meaningful components. And it's fascinating that she actually winds up in this sort of closing piece of the book talking about tikkun olam, and through the lens of striving, that like when we look out at the world, it's possible to engage in tikkun olam, that we can repair the world and make it a better place than it currently is. And as I was thinking about this, and as Inez and I were talking, I would offer something that is different. I see it as a little more accurate to what she's talking about. I would offer the lens of tshuva, right? That if we're thinking about striving, that if we're thinking about going beyond just sort of the baseline of what we can do, yes, there's a component of that involves our actions, like out there in the world, and sort of doing the things that we might need to do on a broader sense. But I think striving starts as an internal personal process, I think, right? I think that's something that we start within ourselves, that then sort of moves out into the world from there. And there's this lovely idea, and Inez and I have been talking about it a lot based on some things that we've been sharing over the past couple of months, and she might want to speak to it as well. But this idea of tshuva, yes, it's repentance, but it's also return, that we can return to the person that we want to be, right? That when I think about myself in the world, when I think about what I'm striving towards, I might fall short of that, right? I might go adrift, I might go astray, and I can always take a breath, right? And return to that person, to that vision of who I could be. And do you want to say any more about that?
I think I want to circle back to Michal's question, because it comes back to this returning, is that especially for a lot of people I've been hearing from during this time, have really needed so much tenderness, right? Because everybody is just trying to do the best they can. They really are. And so I want to add that layer of self-compassion. So when we do go back and do the inventories, we are our own worst critics. We will beat ourselves up for that which we did not achieve, did not strive, did not succeed. And so this idea of I'm human, I'm doing the best I can, just that layer of self-compassion, that I'm not indulging, I'm not complacent, and I'm not perfect, but I'm doing what I can for now. And so there's nothing like Yom Kippur to highlight that even more as we do these personal inventories. And I'm doing the best I can. Yeah.
Yeah, Cindy.
So, I don't disagree with you, but
Oh, come on, you can disagree with me.
But I do think that many people don't. I mean, tshuva is really, really difficult work. And the only way that many of us can get to that work is through the actual tikkun. So it's that na'aseh v'nishma, that do we do it and then from that we understand, or are we pushing ourselves to understand, which is pushing us to do? And Judaism is so focused on actions, and there is a pitfall of the tshuva without the tikkun. And you know, that's a pitfall. I think a lot of us, like, we believe in these things. We think of ourselves in this particular way, but our lives are so busy, or we're stuck at home because of a pandemic, and we can't creatively think our way out of that box to get to the tikkun from the tshuva. So I think that there's a bit of a danger of there's like a danger of being solely focused on tshuva, but also there's a lot of people who can only get to tshuva through the tikkun.
So I just want to, I think we are saying close to the same thing. So I want to make sure I hear what you're saying. So you're saying you see the tikkun as the action and the tshuva as the reflection. Is that, yeah? So I guess, so I hear that, and I'll clarify a little bit. I see it less about action versus reflection and more about sort of collective and individual. Now again, both are important, and we shouldn't err towards just one or the other, right? That balance is important. I think I've also seen folks who get very attached to fixing the world without focusing on themselves, and they get burned out, right? Or they, fall short in different ways that they don't take ownership of, right? Because I'm just so busy, I need to save the world, right? We also need to focus on ourselves. And I'll say tshuva isn't just an intellectual process, it requires action, right? It's not just returning to the person I want to be as I just take a deep breath and I say, oh, okay, now I'm all better, right? It's about, if I notice that I need to be more careful about being mindful of my spouse, I don't just say to myself, gosh, I should be more mindful of my spouse. Okay, time, right? No, I need to come up with a plan for how am I going to do that, right? I need to make sure that I'm going out of my way to ask, how was your day? Instead of just launching into my old monologue. Or I'm going out of my way to cook dinner once in a while instead of only saying thank you when she cooks dinner, right? Like I need to set up what those actual concrete actions are going to be. Because otherwise, yeah, I'm with you, right? Without the action, it's lacking something. I also hear you saying, like, sometimes the action, right, can lead to the understanding, right? Right, because the reflective piece can be difficult. So I think part of that might also be being open to, advice, guidance from others, right? Whatever that might be. I think the action piece, yeah, is critical. I agree. Inez, what do you think on that?
No, I love that. I love that, because usually not usually, especially for young children, when we do a lot of tikkun olam service, acts of service, it does take you out of yourself so that it can bring you back into yourself. And so that's one way that we have found most helpful. In the broad comes the personal. So I appreciate what you said. Yeah.
That there can be some back and forth between the two.
Yeah.
I guess the one other thing I'll say on that is just when I think about striving, at least in terms of how Dr. Miller specifically was talking about, it seemed as if she was talking about it from that more individual place. But as we're talking it through, yeah, I mean, maybe there is more of an ebb and flow between these components, right? That makes sense. I could see that too. So with that in mind, Lucas, let's hop ahead 2 slides, please. Yeah. I'll just very quickly read that Heschel quote because it's a great quote, but we're going to get into some story sharing before we wrap up. Heschel writes that tshuva is more than contrition and remorse for sins, for harms done. Tshuva means a new insight, a new spirit, a course of action, right? It's not just regret, right? It's not just, oh, I feel bad about this. And it's in fact more than just an insight, right? It's an actual plan, right? It's a course of action for what you're going to do, for what I'm going to do, to do things differently, to do things better. So with that in mind, let's open it up a little bit. We did this on Rosh Hashanah. We'll do it now too, to encourage folks to reflect on this a bit, speaking in I statements, reflecting on this for yourself. When we think about striving, oftentimes that'll mean it's on the heels, not only, but it'll often mean on the heels of, oops, right, I made this mistake, and then learning from it, not just, oops, that was a mistake, ugh, that was terrible, right, but oops, that was a mistake, and now how am I going to learn from it? So let's take a few minutes, can you think of a time? Can you tell a story about a time that you learned from a mistake? Can't see the hair. Actually, Lucas, can we pop out of the? I can't see everybody so well. Lucas, can you pop us? There we go. Oh,
All right.
hello. Sure, Diane, your spotlight. You have the floor.
Yeah. There are potholes on Whitworth, right near Beth Am. And it was Yom Kippur, I think about 5 or 6 years ago, when David and Yael were here with a young Nadav who's now 7.5. And, you know, I was like, okay, I want to try and not wear leather. I was wearing sandals that were not real tight, and I tripped and I fell. And I look very much more carefully at potholes. And I also make sure I've got shoes on that are going to protect me. And that's a concrete learning from a mistake, but it also means I wasn't paying attention. So I sort of feel like sometimes it's not just, you know, I made a mistake. Okay, so I'm going to take the Hebrew for a second. Lataken. Okay, so how am I correcting it? Changing what I wear and how I pay attention. And the tshuva for me was really getting up. You know, I skinned my knee a little bit, went to shul. The guy in the front office helped me clean it up. I was fine, and that was it. But the tshuva for me was I missed a mark, a concrete mark, and I had to get back on the path. And I'm sharing it because it was a concrete experience, which sounds funny, but it is.
Which I think it was asphalt.
It was, you know, asphalt crossing the street, whatever it was. But yeah, no, it's those potholes on Whitworth, which the city still hasn't, you know. So I'm sharing it as a funny story, but I'm sharing it as sometimes things are not as, you know, spiritual, whatever, but sometimes it's a concrete thing that we learn from. So anyway, you want to share woodworking or no? Bob said, I've got woodworking, and he said,
all of mine have to do with mistakes or near mistakes with computer problems or woodworking in the shop. I work with power tools. Guess what? It's real easy to lose a finger if you're not careful.
Your hands, Bob. How are we doing?
I got all 10 toes. But
okay.
I don't need to go into details, but I'll give you one. Okay. Many years ago, I was making a cabinet for my shop, and I'm cutting a door that's about, I don't know, 12 by 12 maybe, across the table saw. And I lost attention for some fraction of a second, and the piece of wood ended up going over the top of the blade. I didn't hurt myself. I could have, but that door's still there. It's got a big round scar on it as a reminder. Don't do that.
Right. What's the reminder of?
The power of a 10-inch blade of carbide teeth driven by a 2-horsepower motor.
I don't know what any of those terms mean, but it basically sounds like don't mess with the saw.
Anything that can cut wood 2 inches thick.
Yeah. Don't mess with that.
At speed is dangerous to human bodies.
Yes.
So
that much I got.
It's just a reminder to keep my hands away from the blade. I've got more tools for pushing things through, and I pay more attention. And
so,
but in personal terms, I can't think of anything, because I think you're really looking for experiences with people who have made mistakes. And at the moment, I can't think of anything. Diane, if Diane had any, she would have piped up with them already. So somebody else take the spotlight.
But what I will say is you both said it, and I don't know if you noticed, but you both said a phrase. There's something in common with both your stories, which is paying attention. Right? That Diane, you stumbled because you weren't paying attention as you were walking. That Bob, you with the whatever horsepower, with the whatever inch thick pointy thing, that you could have really hurt yourself, right? And not paying attention is not necessarily a mortal sin, but it's difficult. Paying attention is difficult. And paying attention in this time in particular is difficult. Think about all the things that are so easy to do to distract ourselves from what's happening right now. You know, it's a challenge to pay attention. And I think that that's also what this work can offer, is to share the story and then to look one layer deeper and to say, oh, that's not everything that was happening there, right? Yes, obviously don't trip and don't slice a finger off. Yes, those are good lessons to learn. And also there is something a little bit deeper, right? In each of those stories, you both said it, right? You both said, I wasn't paying attention. And I think, you know, that can be something to work on cultivating and to strive towards.
I'll keep it real simple. I don't know how often you go walking around your neighborhood with or without a mask on, but how often do you see people who clearly are not paying attention, don't have a mask on, they're looking at their phone, they're going to walk right by you on the sidewalk and never look up.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know about you, but I get very annoyed with people like that, not paying attention. I do. I put on a mask and, you know, or walk 10, 15, 20 feet away from them, because, you know, I'm not going to yell at them. That's not my business. But I am going to keep myself safe, my family safe, by staying somewhere else, being somewhere else.
Can you mute us, please?
Anybody else want to share a story about a time you successfully learned from a mistake that you successfully strove?
I'm gonna share a story that's current, and it makes me, it's kind of me being quite vulnerable in this particular venue, which is unusual. But so I have just kind of taking into heart what Rabbi Klickfeld's sermon was last night, and I mean, these are unusual times in the workplace, particularly when you have a team of people that are come from different races and ethnicities. And I find myself talking too much, and I notice it. And my striving is to listen more and not talk too much, not fill the space. And this has happened now a couple of times. There was my team, you know, we're meeting virtually, and when the unrest was happening, and you know, right here, like geographically, it was stressful, and I was stressed. I was stressed. I was, you know, thinking about the grocery stores I go to. I was thinking about the drugstores I go to. I was thinking about what is my community, and I was stressed, and I was talking a lot, and afterwards I kind of reflected on that, thinking I sound like an idiot a little bit, and then it happened again, and I couldn't stop it. The other night, we were talking about how one of the interns, she was telling the story about how the teacher actually gave the class time off because it was a public health program, and wanted to make sure that the students felt that they had time to digest the ruling that came down for Breonna Taylor. And it was another moment for me to listen, and instead I talked about some of the significance. I talked about some of the things that I had been reading. I talked. It's sort of like it's a personality trait where, and so I'm in the process of striving, and so I'm reflecting on it, and I'm striving. I'm not there yet, but I know it's something that it's important, as just as a human in my community, as a leader in my team of staff, as just wanted to share.
Thanks, Cindy. Thank you for sharing that. Can I ask you one more question on that? What do you think is like one step underneath that? Like, can you pinpoint, like you sort of identified, like this is
Beyond like shutting up, I think that's a good start.
no, not in terms of like what you might do, but in terms of when you when you feel that urge to like talk, right? When you feel that urge to go in a spot where it might not really be your place to say something, can you identify like what might be the motivating factor then?
The motivating factor to talk in itself. I actually think that I think it's nervousness, honestly. I think it's a space filling mechanism. I don't think it's necessarily because I think I have so much to say. I think it's a you know, kind of sitting with the space and being able truly to listen to other people and not be anxious about it. And so I think that's what I'm keeping in check.
Cindy, I don't think you should be so hard on yourself. I mean, I run a morning meeting and on Zoom, it's hard. It's hard. You have these like dead spaces where nobody wants to talk. People just want to get over with the meeting. They don't want to contribute. But you have to, you know, there are certain things you do have to talk about and communicate. And sometimes it is like pulling teeth. And so maybe like, for me, I know I feel very similar to you and that like I probably need to be better in asking the right questions to get the people to be able to share, to be comfortable sharing on Zoom.
So I wish we had another half hour to get into all of this. I wish we even had another half hour to just sort of, not to torture Cindy, but just like explore this more, because I do think it's like such a rich and resonant topic, big picture. Cindy, you're articulating so beautifully, right? So like really thank you for sharing that and for your willingness to be vulnerable and for like going even one step deeper into that. I think it really was a beautiful illumination of what this process can look like. Really, that it's something that you've noticed, that it's something that, oh man, that might even be a repeated pattern. Oh, I'm noticing myself doing this. I'm not quite sure how to respond. I'm looking at what's underneath. And then I think leavened really nicely by Michal just now saying, this is hard, and have some compassion. And it doesn't mean don't work on it, right? It doesn't mean if that's something that you're noticing, just completely let yourself off the hook and say, whatever, you know, it's a hard time right now. You have to say, okay, this is tough. And I've noticed this is something that I'm going to work on, and it might come from this anxiety. So how do I work on that anxiety? And then how can I do this differently moving forward? I think that right there, that's this in a nutshell. And I think for me, that's what Yom Kippur is at its best. So we're like just at time, which is sad because I feel like we're just diving in, but I'll sort of like leave this here as an invitation to keep reflecting like this, to keep doing this kind of work over the course of Yom Kippur and beyond, right? The work doesn't end just because the high holidays are over. And what I'll offer in terms of building this spiritual strength is I think as Cindy's illuminating, to be honest with yourself about when you might be falling short and also when you succeed, right? That both of those are so critically important. So I want to thank Inez for joining us this morning. Inez, I don't feel like I gave you enough room to speak. I might have also been talking a little too much. Occupational hazard. But I'm really grateful you were here to share this time with us and to offer what you offered and to work on this together. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I like holding space here.
I like that you're holding it with me. I'm so grateful that everybody came out, and I hope came out, zoomed in, whatever it is we're doing now. I'm grateful you guys were here. to learn together and to share together. And wishing everybody a sweet and healthy new year and Gemar Chatima Tova. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you.
meaningful rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.